Welcome inside the War Room. I'm your host, Andrew Valancourt, and we're back today for episode 78 of the Dynasty War Room podcast. On today's show, we're going to be playing some true or false. So I've got a number of statements here through the first 2 weeks of the NFL season, and I'm going to go through and tell you whether I think they're true or false and how to best react to these scenarios here in your fantasy football leagues. Before we get into that, though, as always, make sure you are following this podcast on your platform of choice. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you name it, we're there. So go make sure that on whatever platform you are either liked or following, subscribed. That way you don't miss any future shows as they come out. So find us on social media as well. We're on Twitter or X at Dynasty War Room. You can find our Facebook page, YouTube channel, as I mentioned, and ask us questions, interact, all that good stuff. We'll be happy to hear from you. And one last message before jumping into the true or false. Fast Draft. It's a new best ball app. Go get it. Use code WARROOM when you sign up and deposit $50. Anything up to $50, you'll get a full deposit match from Fast Draft to use towards best ball drafts. There's going to be in-season contests. So just because the season has begun does not mean that draft season is over. So go check out Fast Draft. Use my code WARROOM, all one word, and you'll get a deposit match when you play through some of those fun contests. So, all right, let's get into some true or false. And the first statement here that we're going to give you a true or false answer to is that the Bengals' skill position players will significantly disappoint you for the rest of the season because of Joe Burrow's injury. And I'm going to say false. I do not think that Joe Burrow let me back this up. Joe Burrow, obviously, incredible quarterback. He's going to be out for at least 3 months. It's going to take him through essentially to the fantasy football playoffs. He's pretty much done for the season from a fantasy perspective. Maybe you can bring him back in the playoffs for fantasy if you have some depth and you really need him, or if you lack depth and you really need him. But I'm not sure that I'll be confident enough to do that when the time comes. Chances are he's going to be essentially done for the entire season. But the Bengals' skill position players are still supremely talented guys. I mean, we're talking the number one overall pick in fantasy drafts in Ja'Marr Chase, who, with Jake Browning at quarterback, was still fantastic. I mean, we're talking, what did he have? 14 catches, 16 targets. He had a monster fantasy finish, north of 35 fantasy points if you play in PPR leagues. And Jake Browning was not that bad. He did throw a few interceptions, but from a fantasy perspective, where you're looking for somebody that can get the ball to his receivers and air it out, especially for a team like the Bengals, whose defense is subpar, he was able to get the ball around. So he had 240 yards passing. He had a couple touchdowns. He threw the ball a bunch, and he is someone that I think can still do enough to feed Ja'Marr Chase, keep him as a wide receiver one for fantasy. Now, will Ja'Marr Chase finish as the number one overall wide receiver this year? Maybe not. But do I still think he should be a top 5 player, top 10 player? Absolutely. I think that number one overall is still in his range of outcomes. It's always difficult for a player to repeat as the number one player as it is, even if somebody like Joe Burrow stayed healthy. So I'm not taking him out of any lineups. I don't think that he's going to be someone that disappoints you. I think you can leave him right there in your lineup. He's going to be perfectly fine. He's going to give you a boatload of points. You'll be happy with him throughout the season. So Joe Burrow getting hurt, I don't think is going to significantly hurt Ja'Marr Chase. I also don't think that this will impact Chase Brown in too much of a negative way. He just needs to be a little bit more efficient. He started hot in week 1 with a touchdown and then kind of ended up in this slog of inefficiency. Did the same thing this week where he just wasn't quite breaking through. But he's getting the volume, and so he's still going to get the volume with Jake Browning at quarterback. So I'm not worried about Chase Brown. I think, generally speaking, the offense as a whole is probably going to be throwing the ball maybe a little bit more, than it would have before almost, because the team might be in more close games or playing catch up. So there's still going to be plenty of offense for this team. It just might come in a slightly different way. But Chase Brown, to me, is still somebody that I view as a low-end RB1 for the rest of this season. I think he will be just fine. And then T. Higgins, the wide receiver 2 on this team, I think he's going to be fine as well. I think if you had to nitpick and pick one of the big 3 skill position guys that might suffer a little bit, I do think it would be T. Higgins because it is difficult for a non-elite quarterback to sustain 2 elite, top 12, top 20 options at the wide receiver position. Now, again, this is probably the most talented 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the NFL, so it's a little bit of a different scenario compared to, most teams, but there's going to be a little bit of a drawback somewhere. And so I do think that we should probably be viewing T. Higgins as more of a true wide receiver 2, maybe a low-end wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season, which I think would be a little bit of a disappointment. But again, I think he's still going to be startable. He'll still be fine. And he's somebody that you can start on a week-to-week basis, even without Joe Burrow. The tight ends, I don't think a lot of people were necessarily relying on guys like Gesicki or Noah Fant as it was. So I don't think that scenario changes very much either, because you, again, probably weren't counting on them in the first place. So the change at quarterback doesn't make a huge difference to how those 2 guys are going to be viewed. Maybe caps their upside a little bit. But again, I'm still perfectly fine. I have trust in Jake Browning to be able to feed this offense in a way that is helpful for fantasy. How that turns out in real life in terms of Cincinnati winning or losing football games might be a bit of a different story if he can't get the turnovers under control. But at least he kind of has a Jameis Winston flair to him. I don't know that he is obviously quite on that level in terms of talent, but from a fantasy perspective, he might be able to feed this offense in a similar fashion where he might throw a ton of interceptions, but he's still going to be able to throw touchdowns, keep these, big-time fantasy football assets in position to lead your team to success. All right, now the second statement is it's time to panic about this year's rookie running back class. And this was a rookie running back class that was really, really hyped up at the running back position. I mean, Ashton Genty, Amarian Hampton, Travion Henderson, the big 3, RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, Bashal Tootin, Cam Scattaboo. I mean, there's a whole long list of guys, and for the most part, it's been a disappointment across the board. We've had a couple nice moments here or there from some of these guys. Scattaboo had a nice week 2 after doing nothing in week 1, but by and large, it's been a just complete disappointment for some of these top tier guys. Really, when you look at the top 5 players that were drafted, for the most part, again, in the first round of Dynasty rookie drafts, with Genty at the 101, Hampton going in the top 4, top 5, Henderson in that same range, and then Harvey and Johnson. And Johnson's been the biggest disappointment. I mean, he's barely getting on the field. He's making mistakes on kickoffs. He might get benched. I mean, it's really, really bad for Caleb Johnson right now. So we talked about him on the last week's show in terms of the panic meter. So if you want to panic about Caleb Johnson, go ahead. But in terms of the entire rookie running back class and whether it's time to panic, I'm going to say false. It is not time to panic yet. Do I have concerns? Yes, absolutely. Because we have not been getting enough through the first 2 weeks of the season from guys like Genty and Hampton and Henderson and Harvey and players that you drafted high enough, whether it be in a rookie draft or especially in redraft. The first 3 names, Genty, Hampton, and Henderson, were being viewed essentially as starting running backs from a redraft perspective. And while Genty and Hampton have been deployed that way, Henderson has not, and Hampton has been disappointing through the first 2 weeks. Didn't have a great showing against the Raiders, although he didn't get a big workload. So he had more of a workload in week 1, just couldn't quite get a touchdown. That would have changed, I think, the outlook from his first week performance, but then didn't do anything in week 2. So Genty's struggling. He is not out there on passing downs, which is a concern. So it seems clear that he needs to improve his pass protection. Dylan Laube, a late round pick from last year to the Raiders that barely played last year, was getting playing time against the Chargers. So I think there should be a level of concern for these rookies, but I'm not panicking. I'm not giving up. And the main reason for that is that it is so early in the season, and we've seen year after year after year that there are plenty of rookies that take a few weeks, a few games, even later in the season to develop into quality fantasy football assets. So they just need some time to break out. They need to get their legs under them. They need to learn the game, get up to speed, and sometimes it just takes time. And it takes time and practice to earn the trust from coaches. And it's just clear that we are not there all the way with some of these guys. So we'll check back. We'll do a rookie review about halfway through the season, and we'll reassess the situation. Hey, when we get to, week 8, week 9, 10, 11, etc., how are we feeling then? Because at that point, we'll have had half the season under our belt. We can have a better look in terms of how things are shaking out. But there's a tweet going around, I think from a CBS, I believe it was CBS fantasy football writer. So I'm not going to go through and read his entire tweet, but the gist of it was, hey, we've seen all these guys, and just list off all these studs in the NFL, whether it be Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Justin Jefferson, all these guys that we now consider as the truly elite players, and there's struggles from the rookie season in their first few games in some way, shape, or form, whether it's playing time, lack of efficiency, no big games. There's always something, and we are not always going to be blessed with that incredible, amazing, awesome rookie that just from week 1 on is amazing. And I think we were hoping to get that at least from Ashton Genty. So in that sense, it's a bit of a disappointment that he has not been better. I was expecting a little bit more through 2 weeks from Amari and Hampton, but again, it's too early to give up, and I still see good things coming down the pipeline for these guys. RJ Harvey, he's stuck behind J.K. Dobbins, who's looked very good through the first 2 weeks, and but again, Dobbins injury prone, things could change very, very quickly, and so it's too early to be panicking or to be giving up on these rookies. I understand that it can be a big point of frustration in redraft because you probably are counting on these guys. So hopefully you have enough depth elsewhere to be able to put them on your bench and not feel like you need to start them. I think Genty is really the only guy that you're probably still just leaving in your lineup no matter what, because of where he was drafted. He's still getting a huge workload. And so he is somebody that I still think you should keep in your lineups. But everyone else, don't feel bad about putting a guy on your bench. Give him a week or two and then put him back in, depending on how things shake out. But I'm not panicking yet. I don't think you need to yet. There should be I would say a mild level of concern, unless you're talking about Caleb Johnson, in which case I think a much higher level of concern is certainly fair since he's hardly getting on the field. But for everyone else, deep breath. Things should turn around with time. And patience is something that us fantasy managers struggle with. And, it's very important in these types of situations. Give it some time, and things should turn around. Statement number 3 that I want to react to here with a true or false, and I don't know if I ever gave a true, real answer, but obviously my answer to number 2 about the rookie running back class and something you should panic about is false. And number 3, Daniel Jones is legit. He's here to stay, and he is the dude for the Colts. He's going to continue to produce in fantasy for the rest of the season. Now, this is I think one of the most difficult questions on this list, and I'm going to say false, but not because Well, let me explain. I want to back up. I'm going to say false, but only because I think I need to see a little bit more. I am just slow to come around on players like Jones. I think that he absolutely could be legit and here to stay, but like I said for the rookie running backs, where patience is important, I think that I want to be patient as well with my assessment of Daniel Jones. He's looked great through 2 weeks. I think that the question of whether Anthony Richardson should be on the field and getting playing time has been put to bed. So in the sense that I think he is the dude for the rest of the season, yes, that is true. But whether he is going to be a legitimate starting option in fantasy every single week for the rest of the season, I'm just not quite there yet. He is rushing the ball, which is what he did really well in his big fantasy season for New York. He's got a couple rushing touchdowns already. So if he can continue to do that, then yes, he is going to be a very good fantasy option the rest of the way. And I would imagine that is going to then lead to him getting a contract extension with the Colts. But I'm just not quite there yet. I don't want to crown a guy after 2 weeks. I want to give him some more time. It's certainly encouraging that he has done so well. He's got back-to-back 22-plus point games. He's been a top 10 quarterback each week. He had a huge week 1 where he was a QB3, and I believe he was QB7 in week 2. So he's somebody that you can plug into your lineup. At this point, I think he is you can trust until he falls, which I think is certainly a big improvement over what he was prior to the season. I'm just not ready to crown him as a legitimate starting quarterback that can be there past this year, that is going to put to bed all rumors of Richardson or anybody else. I want to see a few more games. But again, we might check back on this, week 5, week 6, and he's still playing well. And then I think at that point, it will be perfectly fine to say, yep, he's the guy. He's got this job locked down. He's the Sam Darnold of 2025, that kind of thing. And the one thing that he does that is so good, again, it's that rushing upside. He can move the ball with his legs, and that gives him a higher ceiling in fantasy football compared to somebody like a Sam Darnold who, when he bounced back last year and was great, didn't quite add that element. But Daniel Jones does, and he's got some pretty good weapons in Indianapolis. I mean, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Tyler Warren. I mean, there are good players around Jones. So it is very encouraging. I'm excited about it. I like the progress. I have Daniel Jones in a ton of leagues, so seeing him get this opportunity and run with it is great. But I just want to pump the brakes a little. I don't want to get too far out ahead with Daniel Jones and just hyping him up as the next big thing. I'm giving it a couple more games, but I'm getting close. But for now, not quite there yet. All right, next up, Rome Odunze has overtaken DJ Moore as the Chicago Bears' clear wide receiver 1. And I'm going to say this is true. So I am a big DJ Moore guy. I've gotten him on a number of squads. And I've got Rome Odunze, I think, on at least one team, maybe 2. But it's something where I was still holding on to DJ Moore. Even in the offseason, I still was projecting DJ Moore to be the wide receiver 1 for the Bears, potentially to slot into that kind of Amon-Ra St. Brown role with the Ben Johnson offense. And number one, the Ben Johnson offense has looked certainly much different than it did in Detroit. I don't think it's fair to say that there's a St. Brown role necessarily in that offense. And Rome Odunze, though, has been the guy in terms of targets and catches. He's certainly got the touchdowns already. He had a huge week 2 against the Lions with, a 30-point game. And he's simply playing better than DJ Moore. He's getting the targets from Caleb Williams. And unlike last year where he was, on and off the field in terms of, whether it be a 2-receiver set, 3 receivers, there was Keenan Allen there with DJ Moore. He is very clearly on the field all the time now, and he is the deep threat. He is kind of the alpha receiver now on that team, and that's what he was drafted to do. He was a top 10 pick, big-time college player, and he's finally, kind of taking that next step. It was a bit slow. And again, this is harping back to the rookie running backs. Rome Odunze was very average as a rookie. But here we are, year 2, week 2, and he's taken a big step forward, and he's looking great. So it could take some time with rookies, and Rome Odunze, I think, has taken that step. I would trust him in a lineup moving forward. I still think that DJ Moore can be a serviceable fantasy option. I just think he might be more of a flex play at this point. I don't know if you're in a league, like a redraft league that has 2 receivers and a flex spot. I don't know if he's going to be many teams' top 2, a top 2 wide receiver for fantasy, but a third, a fourth option as a flex, I think absolutely he can still be that. Caleb Williams is still looking his way. They're still doing design screenplays to DJ Moore, that sort of thing. So he's still going to get the ball. But Rome Odunze is the guy that now feels like the player that is going to be the red zone guy. He's going to score touchdowns. He has true wide receiver 1 upside, whereas I don't know that DJ Moore does at this point. I'm sure he'll still have some big games, but in terms of fantasy finish at the end of the year, I'm expecting Odunze to be on top, and I'm very encouraged by the progress that he has made through 2 games. Number 5, Tucker Kraft won't be a one-hit wonder and is now a top 5 dynasty tight end. And I'm going to say true. I think that Tucker Kraft is legit. I already had him very, very high in my dynasty ranks. I think I had him at my tight end 6 coming into the season. So it's saying that he's in the top 5 is really not anything crazy for me. I think there's been a little bit of some shuffling among the rookies with Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland. It's been a very disappointing start to the year for Loveland. I've been a big proponent of him on this podcast, and he's just not getting on the field enough, and is not getting the targets. So some of the fears about too many targets on the offense and Cole Kmet being there certainly have come to fruition. So I think for now, Loveland has fallen to that 6th spot in my rankings, and then I have Warren and Kraft ahead of him. And Kraft, you get by Bowers and McBride, and I think you're talking about Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft in a similar way. He could very well be the target leader for the Green Bay Packers, who certainly look like one of the best teams in the NFL. And he had a monster week 2, had a big breakout. I've been talking about Tucker Kraft for 2 years in a row now on this podcast, and it feels good. I feel like I have a true hit with Tucker Kraft, a guy that I identified early, and he looks to be a very good, solid tight end. He is somebody that Jordan Love trusts in the red zone, and he is somebody that, especially when you're talking about tight ends, the touchdowns are so important, and the fact that he is a very good yards after catch receiver and a good red zone threat just makes him a very, very good, solid long-term option at tight end. So absolutely not a one-hit wonder. I think he's going to be a very good player the rest of the season, and I have him as a top 5 dynasty tight end. Number 6, we're going to go back to the quarterback position. Bryce Young has regressed, and I'm going to say true. I don't think this one's necessarily that difficult. This is simply Bryce Young reverting back to what he was prior to his breakout at the end of last season. He does not look good. He put up a solid fantasy performance in week 2 against Arizona, but a lot of that was garbage time. The team, the offense was playing against a defense in Arizona where the Cardinals had the game in control and soft coverage. It's just not something that I think is going to keep carrying over week to week. The turnovers are still there, whether it's interceptions and fumbles have been a problem for him. He was dreadful in week 1. I think the team as a whole has looked bad. Teteroa McMillan has looked very good. So I am encouraged by him. He's been one of the very few rookies that has actually been productive so far through 2 weeks. It's essentially been McMillan and Emeka Egbuka And that's about it. I mean, you could throw Tyler Warren in there, but it's been a disappointing year for rookies. But McMillan not included, and so Bryce Young is at least targeting him and getting him involved, which is nice to see. But it still seems like he just has trouble getting the throws out to where they need to be. He doesn't have very good arm strength. It does look like he has some trouble sometimes seeing his receivers over his offensive line. He is a smaller quarterback. And the one thing that's really kind of saving him and propping him up just a little bit is that he is running the ball to an extent. But I'm really discouraged about Bryce Young. I am just skeptical that he's going to put it together. It's not going to surprise me if Carolina's looking for a new quarterback at the end of the year. And it's disappointing because he was such a good player in college. And he has shown flashes here and there, but I just don't think he is a quality NFL quarterback. I think that the best case scenario for him is that he is a league average quarterback, and I just don't think that is good enough in this league to win a Super Bowl or, let alone make the playoffs and be a top competitive team. So Carolina, unfortunately, off to a rough start, and it is true that Bryce Young has regressed. Now, the final take here is that this is more general. It's not player-specific. It's more of an NFL as a whole question. And it's that the NFC is better than the AFC this season. And I think this is true. I think for a long, long time, we have, seen the AFC dominate. They have been the better conference. I mean, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, every single year there is a big fight to make the playoffs and plenty of good teams. But I think that we started to see a shift last year where the NFC was at a minimum on par, if not better than the AFC. But this year I think that the AFC has lost a lot of its depth in terms of good, solid playoff teams. Obviously, there are still the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, still two elite teams. The LA Chargers look to be in that group this year. Very good team. Justin Herbert and the Chargers have looked great through 2 weeks. And so I think that those three teams, the Bills, the Chargers, and the Ravens, certainly are elite and would be at the top. In fact, I think you could make a case that 3 of the top 5 teams in the entire league would be the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chargers. But the NFC, the Packers look really legit. That seems to be a take that I have gotten wrong. Over the summer, when we did our divisional preview for the NFC North back in July, I had essentially said that the Packers might struggle this year. They might miss the playoffs. They weren't a team that I considered to be a very serious threat to the NFC North. Then in August, they go out and they get Micah Parsons, and that obviously changed things for them. And now they look like a Super Bowl contender and one of, if not the best team in the NFL. So between the Packers and the Eagles, I think that you can essentially match the Bills, the Chargers, the Ravens. The Lions are still very good in the NFC. Commanders. The NFC West is very, very competitive. It's between the 49ers, Cardinals, and Rams. Those are 3 2-0 teams. So it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath in the NFC this year. I think from a depth perspective, the NFC has more. They have just a higher volume of quality teams, whereas the AFC, you get past that big 3, you're looking at the Bengals without Joe Burrow, you're looking at the Colts at 2-0, Houston at 0-2 has certainly not lived up to their billing. Denver 1-1, they're a good team, but the Kansas City Chiefs starting out 0-2, I think we all expect the Kansas City Chiefs to bounce back and be competitive, but they don't look good through 2 weeks. Miami's dreadful. The Jets are 0-2. The Browns are dreadful. The Steelers stink. I mean, there's not a lot of good quality teams in the AFC. A very, very top-heavy league. I think the NFC is a better conference this year. Certainly more competitive. I think there's going to be some really exciting divisional races, particularly in the NFC West and the NFC North, that will be very exciting to watch throughout the season, whether it's the Rams and the 49ers battling it out, the Packers and the Lions. Packers, of course, getting the edge early in the season in that matchup. But even Commanders and Eagles in the NFC East, and Buccaneers, Falcons in the South. So I'm excited about some of these matchups and that we're going to see throughout the season. So yeah, NFC better than the AFC this year. That is certainly going to be true in my book. All right, so there you have it. There is our Week 2 episode. Big slate of games coming up on Week 3. Big time Monday night game with the Lions and the Ravens, two of the teams that we just talked about. So excited for that, and we will be back here next week with another episode to talk about the Week 3 games and things that you should be doing in your Dynasty League as we move deeper and deeper into the NFL season. So thank you all very much for tuning in. My name is Andrew Valancourt. You've been listening to the Dynasty War Room Podcast.